So maybe over to you, Dr. Rachel McDonald, Deputy Director General, for providing the welcome remarks on the important webinar as part of Advancing Early Warning for All series. Over to you, Dr. Rachel McDonald.
Thank you, Girish. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and very much it's a real pleasure to welcome you today. I'm Rachel McDonald, the Deputy Director General of IWMI, and I extend a warm greeting to all of you joining this session, organised part of this Advancing Early Warning for All series. Your presence today reflects a growing recognition of a truth we can no longer afford to ignore. Drought is a global risk that demands urgent, coordinated, and forward-looking action. I'd like to begin to by thanking our co-organizers, CGIAR, UNCCD, WMO, the World Bank, the African Union Commission, and the World Food Programme for their partnership and commitment to addressing one of the most complex and under-acknowledged risks of our time, drought. This diverse and powerful alliance underscores a critical point. Drought is not just an environmental or meteorological issue. It is a developmental, humanitarian, economic, and political challenge, and it must be addressed as such. The title of today's webinar, When the Rain Falls, is a stark reminder of the lived reality for millions of people across Africa, South Asia, and beyond. Drought, often slow in onset and silent in its spread, brings profound disruption to agriculture, to water, to access, to food security, and to the very fabric of rural economies and communities. This silent disaster is too often invisible in its onset and under-prioritized in policy, planning, and investment. That is why this webinar matters, because we're not here to react. We are here to anticipate, to plan, and most of all, to act. What we see the effects on billions of people and hundreds of billions of dollars of damage needs to be able to address, and this must change, and that is why we're here together. At IWMI and across the CGIAR, we are deeply committed to advancing a proactive approach, one that puts early warning, early action, and resilience at the heart of how we manage drought risk. This means harnessing data and technology, but also building governance systems, financing tools, and community capacity that can act before the crisis escalates. One of the key areas we are working on with our partner is the development of a drought action catalyst. And Girish will give a little bit more examples about that in a moment. But it's about creating and supporting on-the-ground drought resilience. Yes, it's about early warning systems, but it's also about drought-resilient crops. It's about stronger water management. It's about many different aspects that are impacted by drought. So today's session brings together leading voices across science, development, finance, and a humanitarian response to explore how we catalyze that shift. The WMO has been at the forefront of developing regional and global frameworks for drought monitoring, forecasting, and early warning systems. The UNCCD, through its Drought Initiative and Drought Toolbox, has championed the development of national drought plans in over 70 countries. The World Bank is supporting innovative financial instruments and climate-smart investments to help countries reduce vulnerability. The African Union, through its frameworks such as African Water Vision 2025 and the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, CAADP, is elevating resilience as a strategic imperative. And the World Food Programme is linking early warnings to early action, some of the most drought-prone areas, protecting livelihoods and saving lives before crises escalate. Critical questions include, how do we move from awareness to action, from forecast to financing, from isolated responses to integrated systems? These are not abstract questions. They are at the core of how we build a future that is safer, fairer, and more resilient for all. You will hear from experts who are leading some of the most promising work in this space, from continent-wide early warning systems to AI-enabled risk modeling, from drought-informed policy and investment to on-the-ground anticipatory action. Today's discussion is an opportunity to bring these threads together. to elevate best practices, identify gaps, and chart pathways to forward. We will hear from experts, policymakers, and practitioners who are above this. I'm sorry.
You need
So
some
sorry.
water.
We will look ahead to major milestones, such as the midterm review of the Sendai framework. But let's take this opportunity to learn from each other. And let me hand over to our moderator, Dr. Daniel Sagai at UNCCD. I do apologize.
Thank you, Rachel. Really appreciate your intervention. I hope it's all okay with you to get some needed water. Yeah, so I think as Rachel really highlighted the role of why the partnership and the kind of institution they are stalwart in this area of drought resilience program. And this particular short segment of presentation is to talk about what is this catalyst movement we are trying to accelerate with the partners who are in the panel, but also the participants who might be coming from development partners, government agencies. I see Somalia, I see a number of Ethiopian partners are there, the NGOs. All we have to really catalyzing this partnership. That's the particular series of this forum is all about. We have been doing this as a part of advancing early warning for all. It's a 19 webinar series, and some of you might have been continuing to participate in the past sessions as well. So this segment is more to deep dive into the drought catalyst movement we are trying to present here. So drought is something where it is affecting everyone day to day, and we have seen that it cut across every sectors, every vulnerable population. As you can see from this picture, whether it is a hydropower, whether it is access to drinking water, water for irrigation, and also industries like in China or in many parts of the region, how the hydropower can change really the whole economy as such. We have seen some of the greatest drought impact that has been reported. This is a report produced by UNCCD on the drought snapshot of 2023, where you can see countries are declaring emergencies around the world. It not necessarily that it affect only the global south. As you can see in North America, Canada, and many other European countries were also equally affected by drought. So it never leave anyone behind. It affects every part of the region where we are. And the picture from the Global Vulnerability Index is also not quite promising. It's around the planet. We are seeing that drought severity levels are significant. Unless we don't invest in right resilience parameters and the pathway to accelerate the drought mitigation efforts, it will be of similar such year on year report we are going to see, not just because of natural phenomenon, but also the impact from climate change, but also the man-made impact when it comes to policies and the sectoral integration and the lot more highlights that the Rachel has spoken about. So I just also want to highlight that the future is not promising. These are some global reports from UN and World Bank. They are estimating roughly about 700 million people are going to be displaced by drought. And that's where some of my colleagues in the CGR is also working on future frontiers on migrations and the whole conflict regions in many of the regions we are seeing in MENA and many parts of the world. And we are also seeing that the children are going to be most affected because of lack of water shortages. And there are a number of other statistics that are listed here. The presentations will be shared in our website at due course of time. So what we are doing it's not that the world has not been listening to all the impact. We are seeing that the momentum started in 2013 with the high level global dialogue on drought management policy started by WMO, and also GWP were closely involved in that. And then we have seen the UNCCD, we have seen the global framework on climate services, African Drought Resilience Initiative, the World Bank initiatives in Africa and elsewhere, CGR initiatives, and the initiatives are continuing. And there was a stock taking exercise led again by WMO with all the partners, which are highlighted here, look at what we need to do ahead of next 10 years from the progress we achieved from 2013. What Rachel reflected on many of the intervention, wastewater reuse, nature-based infrastructure, risk insurance program. We have, I will be highlighting where we have significant capabilities that I've achieved in the last 10 years. You will see some of those reflections. So building on this momentum, IMI and CGR initiated this Catalyst movement. What we call is a Drought Action Catalyst is a one-stop shop program for decision makers, specifically on the value chain of the drought segment from monitoring, vulnerability, and the drought response strategy. So we are thanks to UNCCD COP16 for providing this opportunity to officially launch in Riyadh last year. And from there where we are now, so we have this framework established in the IDMP, and in each of this program how we are going to catalyst with the partnership that we have can deliver more in the ground, because we need more actions in the ground, not just on the top level uncertainties when we talk about IPCC climate change assessment to advocacy at the policy level from the global, but more importantly to look at actions at the ground, what actions we need to enable in the coming years. So in the pillar one, if you look at, it's all about a very promising sign of development, I would say. The Met agencies today have access to reliable seasonal forecast, short-term forecast, or the Met department also investing more in automatic weather stations, etc. So I would not really say that the countries are not in better position. They are in promising. And also, I think this is the area where the private sectors are also increasingly partnered in this region. If you look around the region, there is a significant progress. As I said, there are global systems exist. You can go around in Google and broadly look at the number of variables that the global institutions are processing. Equally promising is also the national systems, the regional systems, which are also upcoming in many parts of the region, which is a welcoming thought, because without information, it also not difficult to, it's very difficult to look at where the vulnerable populations are going to be affected in the next 10 years. So the climate data, the past historical drought events are equally important. And more important, those informations can also help in coming up with the drought response strategies to develop, whether it is on watershed program, resilient infrastructure program as we go forward. The pillar two is an emerging area. We have done some quite a bit of work around in MENA region on the vulnerability assessment, profiling drought profiles, and how we can do the comprehensive drought risk management program, because this is a key pillar that will help in strengthening the pillar 3, and equally again countries that need to have subnational monitoring capabilities as they go forward. So it's a nexus between the three of the pillars that we are aiming to address. Pillar 3 is a very, very important fundamental pillar, which is the actions happens in the ground. We cannot just talk about drought per se as a single crop sector. We need to look at agroforestry. We need to improve water systems resilience, to look at future crop diversification, looking at areas on better water storage potential. As you can see, the whole water system understanding is important. And our CGS system is also, and again, the private sector focus more on crop breeding, the livestock areas, and also beyond the certain risk, that's where the insurance comes into the program. A lot of work comes from World Bank and the African risk capacity, and many are focusing on the pillar 3 areas of enabling the local anticipatory action program. So I would say that the expertise we have so far have shown a lot of pathways of achieving those impact. We have shown these promising numbers when it comes to CGR impact in drought mitigation and preparedness in the last several years. Several countries have received monitoring capability. It's not just only the biophysical elements of monitoring, but equally the pest and disease management, which is also very crucial role. ICRISAT, CIMET, ICADA, and many of our sister organizations are focusing on crop-specific drought-tolerant varieties, etc. So why Catalyst now? With all the progress that is happening, this is a time we feel that the momentum has to go into more transforming reactive response strategies. We should focus on achieving to the goals of SDG, but we also need to deliver better science that are locally relevant, citizen science, locally led adaptation, usefulness of artificial intelligence. Like around the world, we see promising energy in the artificial intelligence on better climate services, artificial intelligence for coordinating and collaborative mechanisms. So we do have drought mitigation AI that is upcoming and connecting the sectors. This is a very, very fundamental area the Catalyst is going to work on. And we also want to go into a more South-South partnership of a proven country models where countries have built a foolproof drought proofing tools and how that can be really scalable at a regional level and at the global scale. And the important is catalyzing the financing area, which is a very gray area, I would say, ready to invest in drought investment program with various counterparts like World Bank, ADB, African Development Bank, any other financing instruments, including the GCF, have to play an accelerative role in strengthening the NAPS and the Sendai framework, SDG, etc. And I think catalyzing is not just about putting a framework or a process, it's more about building the long term program across the sector that we are aiming to do. As I said, we are looking at across sector innovations at a national level template. We are looking at best knowledge sharing from the partners like the forum like today. Community space is something we are looking more for innovation driving, not just the technology, but more social innovation. And importantly, the partnership, which is where this the engine of Catalyst is comes from. A country template is more of bringing more actions in the ground, partnership, policy implementation. We have great examples from UNCCD, the local adaptation coming from World Food Program, the governance system. Many of the think tanks are working around. All these are going to play, and IMI is very crucial to look at the water management innovations, whether it is water accounting, water security framework that we can share on. So, how we can put together all these elements and go to a country to say that you are not just focusing on pillar one, you need to package it as a whole pillar and provide a novel innovation that they can look at not today's drought but also the future drought resilience efforts. So my last slide is more on the benefit that they will reach. They will have proactive planning tool in place, better coordinated governance process, locally tailored solution with our CG centers and many other partners, science driving the entire process, not just the policy ad hoc approach of declaring drought. We need to look more into long term preparedness. Access to finance, the banking and IFIs can play a lot of role. And important is the global learning. We know there are best learning exist in other part of the world. How we can bring it that from countries like Morocco, what they can learn from Pakistan, or vice versa. That's the area we are looking at. And last but not least, the over the years we see that the strengthening early warning component is very critical, making new infrastructures, better storage facilities, conservation measures, dryland cropping productions have improved, crop diversification are emerging, many other avoiding future losses, and increasing production is through better resilience strategy as I highlighted, plus the safety net efforts, whether it is food security, food systems improvement, water use efficiency parameters, and overall how we can transform in the next 3 years, protecting those GDP growth. Like we saw in Zambia, there is a significant drop in GDP just because of one drought, right? So there is a lot we would like to accelerate with you, all of you. What we want to do is join hand with us, how we are going to mobilize this pathway of a strategic partnership. If you are a government, what we are looking for, if you are a development partner. So we are preparing a whole strategic framework which will be launched very soon. I will be sharing with you the copy of that strategic document. But do feel, it is not just a IMI and CGR led initiative. It's everybody has to be part of this initiative. Do reach out to me if you have ideas and you want to part of the collaboration and co-investment opportunity. And thank you. Now I'll pass it on the floor to Daniel Segai, who will moderate this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giriraj. This was a very well versed and a very nice introduction. And the drought action catalyst comes right in time, I think, for all these issues of droughts at COP16. And we had a lot of issues. So thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. Now I have with me very esteemed and distinguished speakers. I'm going to introduce them briefly, and then we'll have 2 rounds of questions before we open up for the question and answer session. The first speaker is Sebastian Gray. He is a scientific officer at for climate service at the World Meteorological Organization in Geneva. He has great expertise, a lot of experts on climate change adaptation and meteorology, and he supports the development of climate services to enhance the resilience and decision-making globally. And the other speaker is Mrs. Viola Otieno, Drought Risk Assessment and Early Warning Specialist at the African Union Commission. Viola is spearheading the establishment and operationalization of the continental drought monitoring and early warning system. So she has a very extensive experience in designing and as well as developing people-centered monitoring and early warning systems, especially in the African context. Looking forward to hear from you, Viola. And the other speaker is Mrs. Rohini Singh Raya. I hope I pronounce it correctly. She's the officer in charge for resilience, emergency, and preparedness and response in social protection at the World Food Program. She has been working a lot on, especially in this, I think she's based in Sri Lanka. She previously served also as an agricultural specialist, and she has very extensive experience focusing especially on food security, climate change adaptation, humanitarian aid, focusing on building community resilience and emergency response. And the last but not least speaker is Marcus Enkel. Marcus is from the World Bank. He is a disaster risk finance specialist at the World Bank with a huge, extensive background on geospatial analysis, focusing on drought risk management and finance. So before joining with the World Bank, Marcus worked in academia with international development and humanitarian organizations. And at the World Bank, he's working on disaster risk finance and insurance programs. So yeah, Marcus is advancing drought resilience by transforming data into actionable insights and guiding investments. Without further ado, I will just move on to the first speaker, Sebastian Gray from the World Meteorological Organization. Each of you will have 3 minutes for answering the question. So we'll have 2 rounds of questions. One, Sebastian, how is WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, advancing the integration of meteorological drought forecasting into national early warning systems, and how does this support anticipatory action on the ground? You have the floor, Sebastian.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction and for the question. So I'll start with saying that this webinar is titled When the Rain Falls, but the real question we are dealing with in drought is when the rains don't fall, or when the rains don't fall as they usually do. In simple terms, when we have drought, what happens when we have drought, or what do we do? And this is where meteorological drought monitoring and early warning come into it. So to support these aspects on drought monitoring and early warning, WMO is undertaking and supporting various actions. Among this, WMO is supporting the enhancement of drought monitoring, forecasting, and early warning through various platforms and using different indicators. So in 2024, the WMO Executive Council passed a resolution to have all members, all of our 193 members, strive to adopt key drought indices like the Standardized Precipitation Index and the Standardized Precipitation and Evaporation Index, and also use combined drought indicators where possible. In addition to this, WMO is also supporting the development of national drought early warning systems in various countries, as well as the establishment of regional drought early warning centers. More recently, a key aspect that we are working on is called, or what we call, a global drought mosaic. And this global drought mosaic will be a regularly updated combination of drought monitors across the world, helping us and all stakeholders to get a comprehensive picture of where droughts are occurring and what is their severity. So such monitoring and forecasting initiatives can be combined with what we can call triggers or thresholds for action. And these triggers and thresholds are crucial for anticipatory action. So for anticipatory action, what do we need to know? We need to know at what points and thresholds people and institutions need to take action. And these thresholds and triggers can be the steps that guide us. So for example, in a region, when the regional or national seasonal forecast is issued, the first trigger could be that there is a forecast for below normal rains. And already you have that first crucial threshold. The national or regional institution has told you, we expect below normal rains in the upcoming season. A second trigger could be based on monitoring. So for example, if the rains in the last 10 days are below a certain threshold, based on the actual rainfall amount recorded, or on indices like the Standardized Precipitation Index, or you can even use vegetation indices. So looking at aspects like this, a combination of both forecasts, looking ahead, first trigger, monitoring second triggers, and others, institutions and organizations like the World Food Programme, like the Food and Agriculture Organization, can be prepared, can anticipate and integrate these into the anticipatory action. So I would say that the work that WMO and our members is doing on meteorological drought monitoring and forecasting is key, if not the key aspect for anticipatory action. And linking to what Rachel mentioned earlier about being responsive and proactive, without early warning, without forecasting, we cannot be proactive, but instead are only being responsive. In brief, I would start with that. Thank you.
Sebastian, thank you very much. This was very insightful, and I remember somebody saying anything that you cannot measure, you cannot manage. So these are very good indicators and very important to also look into the trigger, the threshold, because so that you can trigger some kind of action. So thank you very much for this introduction. And then I will move on to Viola from the African Union Commission. What is the African Union Commission's current role in supporting member states with drought risk governance, and how are early warning systems being institutionalized across the continent? Viola, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Danielle, and thank you to everyone for the invitation. For the Africa continent, we face an increasingly complex risk landscape that is marked by climate extremes, public health emergencies, but also conflict-related crises as well. And therefore, the ability of African Union member states to anticipate and coordinate intervention and responses to droughts and other disasters as well is very critical. And it is for this reason that African Union, through its various programs and mechanisms, is spearheading and advocating for a paradigm shift from reactive drought management to proactive, but not only proactive, but prospective drought risk reduction as well. So that means we can be proactive, but we need to look into the future as well and see how do we address future droughts and how do we build as well. So central to this paradigm shift is effective early warning systems, but also proactive and integrated drought management plans and policies, and also ecosystem-based approaches, and most importantly, drought risk-informed development. So in relation to the question that you asked, I will highlight 3 ways in which African Union is supporting member states with drought risk governance and institutionalization of. So the first one is Africa Multi-Hazard Early Warning and Early Action Systems, AMIWES program. The second one is the Great Green Wall Initiative, which is an ecosystem restoration for long-term resilience building. And I think this is a way to manage the cyclic drought emergencies as well. The third one is the Africa Risk Capacity, which is pre-arranged financing through parametric insurance. And I'll give an example of last year payout to Zimbabwe and Zambia. So Zimbabwe received $32.8 million in insurance payout for the drought, and Zambia received $9.9 million. The Africa Risk Capacity is a specialist agency of the Africa Union Commission. So I will go deeply into the AMIWES program and what we are doing to institutionalize drought early monitoring and early warning systems. So the AMIWES program, established in 2021, is establishing, through a collaborative process, a continental drought monitoring and early warning service that is aimed at providing continuous monitoring of drought situations across the entire continent. And this we feel is important to enhance coordination and also to ensure harmonization or coherence of policies across the continent. In the recent study by IDMP, also mentioned by Sebastian earlier, the Global Drought Mosaic, what you see is that it's only 14 out of the 55 African member states that have a national drought monitoring system. So you see here there is really a gap when it comes to drought monitoring systems in the continent. There are 3 key principles of the drought service we're developing. One is addressing compounding and cascading drought impacts. Most of the drought early warning systems look at the current drought, or they look at the seasonal drought, but you're trying to ensure that even as countries or governments or partners are trying to respond to drought, that they're also aware of the compounding impacts of hydrological drought, for example. The other key principle is from hazard-based to action-oriented drought classification. So not just saying that the drought is severe, but also highlighting what actions could be taken and by whom. I think we all agree that the early warning systems, there's been a lot of advancement in this particular area. What is failing us is the translation of this early warning system, early warning information into action. And we believe that one of the first ways to close this gap is to be able to highlight what actions need to be taken and by whom these actions need to be taken. The third principle is co-design, co-development, and co-production. So we are co-designing this with regional economic communities, but also regional climate centers as well. And we will be engaging with member states as well. We are co-developing this particular product, and we're also co-producing this particular product. In terms of how to institutionalize early warning systems, through the IWMI program, Africa Union, together with partners, are establishing situation rooms. And situation rooms sometimes are known as emergency or disaster operations centers. And so far, we have established 7 situation rooms, 2 at continental level, 1 at Africa Union, and another one at ACMED in Niger. And then regional situation rooms at IGAD, ECAS, ECOWAS, and SADC, and 1 national situation room in Tanzania, with several ongoing efforts in Mozambique and Ethiopia as well. And the idea behind this situation rooms is to provide coordination across different transboundary issues. And we know that drought is one of those issues that are transboundary in nature. In terms of the other way we are supporting institutionalization is through the IWMI institutional and operational framework. This is a continental framework that has been developed. And so far, the IGAD region has been able to cascade this to a regional framework and supported countries like Somalia to cascade this further into a national framework. So again, the idea is to allow for coherence, to allow for coordination, and to also allow for prospective and proactive drought action. I will stop there, Danielle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Viola. This was very, very rich, and I will not do justice if I try to summarize it, but thank you so much. I think Africa is moving, and I can see that at least from the Global Drought Initiative, 35 of the 70 countries that we supported for national drought plans are from Africa. We had a white paper on Africa, DRAPA. I'm sure you know about it, and we hope that things are going to move because there was a Windhoek declaration on what to do next on drought issues. And I supported recently also the SADC countries to have a regional drought management strategy. They call it DREAMS. So thank you, Viola, for inspiring us. And then I'm going to move on with Mrs. Rohini Singaya from the World Food Program. And Rohini, how does the World Food Program experience with shock responsive safety nets and anticipatory action contribute to drought resilience in vulnerable communities? Rohini, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Daniel. The WFP's corporate strategy to support social protection highlights the need to build anticipatory and shock responsive social protection systems that protect vulnerable population from risks such as droughts. So globally, WFP has worked extensively with governments to embed shock responsive features into social protection programs, ensuring that social protection programs are not only designated for routine poverty alleviation, but also for rapid scale up in times of shocks. So the key components of WFP approach includes early warning systems linked to pre-agreed response triggers, allowing governments to act before drought conditions worsen. Flexible and pre-arranged financing mechanisms that reduce delays in mobilizing resources when the drought gets severe. Digital cash transfers and in-kind supports that protect livelihoods and maintain access to food and essential services. The another key component is capacity building and institutional support to integrate shock responsiveness into national social protection strategies, fostering government ownership and sustainability. So in Sri Lanka, WFP experience reflects this global approach tailored to local context. The country faces increasing drought risk aggravated by climate variabilities, affecting agricultural livelihoods and food security. WFP has engaged with government to support the integration of anticipatory action into social protection programs by enhancing drought early warning and risk monitoring system to trigger timely responses. We work with the disaster related agencies as well as the meteorology department to strengthen their capacities so that the meteorology department become more reliable, timely forecasts, early warning, and supporting those agencies to do their monsoon forums, follow-up actions continuously. WFP is assisting them to take it forward. We also piloted in many programs cash-based transfer interventions linked to social protection that reach vulnerable farming household to many WFP's programs. Those are climate resilient agriculture livelihood development during the economic crisis time. Supporting the very vulnerable population household getting immediate food assistance. So we utilized many. It's also electronic transfers and all that WFP have utilized and used, and they are the experiences with us. So, and in addition, the supporting capacity building within government agencies to institutionalize shock responsive mechanisms aligned with national development and disaster risk reduction framework. In the past 1 year, we have initiated many things. WFP took a key role in establishing anticipatory action networks, anticipatory action, technical working groups among government partners, other agencies, humanitarian agencies, and also a national anticipatory action work group where WFP coordinate the flood group. In the anticipatory action technical working groups, it's a co-leader, and we are providing running the secretariat. So in the anticipatory action, Sri Lanka, it's very early stage, and we have started, initiated, supported many of these actions. So this, in addition, now, we are engaged in a study to understand our long-standing social protection system, how far it is shock responsive. So that study is going on at present to support government policy transformation to make it more shock responsive. So what are the gaps existing and what could be done to make it very responsive? So this integrated approach help Sri Lanka shift from crisis-driven response to more proactive resilience-building interventions that safeguard livelihoods before drought escalate into emergencies. It also aligns with WFP's corporate strategy of leveraging social protection as a platform to protect, empower, and transform vulnerable communities in the face of climate shocks. Globally, WFP has worked extensively with governments to embed this shock responsive features into social protection program, ensuring that SP are not only designated for routine poverty alleviation, but also for rapid scale up in times of shocks. There are many examples we could say. Due to this time limitation, I stop here. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Rohini. This was also quite rich discussion, and I know Sri Lanka. I've been there for a few months back, and it's one of our champion countries when it comes to drought planning and all what we have been discussing in terms of the shock responsiveness features. When we were launching the International Drought Resilience Alliance, the head of the WFP at that time, before 3 years, was really emotional that we need to prepare because he just goes firsthand in what happens as a result of drought. And WFP was very much active in this International Drought Resilience Alliance. Thank you very much. So I think we are running out of time. I'm going to now bring Marcus from the World Bank. Marcus, how is the World Bank supporting governments to develop financial instruments that buffer against drought shocks and reduce long-term vulnerability. You have 3 minutes. Thank you,
I'll make it quick.
Marcus.
Hello from DC. A friend of mine who's a meteorologist always says, I know a lot better what will happen than what will happen to who and how. That's exactly what it's about. So before we talk about reducing long-term vulnerability and increasing drought resilience, we need to agree that it's all about managing drought risk before managing drought impact, right? As Rini said, pre-agreed finance will play a major role. That can be anticipatory action, that can be sovereign level insurance or any other tool, risk pools, risk layering. Most importantly, national stakeholders need to be on board, right? And that is because we can mitigate risks, we can transfer them, but their risk will just never be zero. So someone needs to own, and this someone needs to be the government that needs to own this residual part of the risk. Risk ownership, national risk ownership is key. That's why strengthening and co-designing capacities at the national level is important. And that's why this catalyst is so important. So across the bank, there are different global practices. I'm with the global water practice with a jungle of different instruments focusing on infrastructure investments, policies, analytical work. So from an analytical standpoint, a lot of our drought work focuses on getting stakeholders on board. We want to evaluate what's already there, what's needed regarding drought risk, hazard exposure vulnerabilities, national capacities, early warning systems, technical capacities. And we do that in the context of a new methodology that's called the Drought Risk and Resilience Assessment. I'll put that all in the chat. It's basically a step-by-step modular process currently going on in several countries to avoid the duplication of efforts, get people to talk, and at the end of the day, prioritize concrete investments. So it goes far beyond just the discussion about what we need, what we could have done, understanding risk profiles and getting people to the table. It's about concrete investments and also about the duplication of efforts, because what we've seen is that countries that didn't have an early warning system a few years ago realized the gap, and now they have 10, which is also a problem in many cases. The second aspect is the technical work. There's a suite of different financial instruments available. There's obviously no one-fits-all approach. It's all about understanding what the needs, what the capacities, and what the ultimately what the appetite of the government is, or of whoever we're working with is at the subnational level. What we've recently discovered is that there's a lot on going on in the micro level financial sector. There's a lot going on at the sovereign level, but what's missing is the level in between, particularly at the water sector. So there's a critical gap at the meso level stakeholders when it comes to drought risk finance in water utilities, irrigation associations, reservoir operators. And to make it quick, the last one is all about awareness, all about policy. There is the EPIC strategy standing for Enable, Plan, Invest, Control. Basically say that there's a lot to gain from considering droughts and floods together from a government/institutions perspective. We are developing a new type of drought bulletin, a new type of drought synthesis for our own staff. So to avoid surprises at the World Bank level internationally, we hope to make this publicly available in the coming months. Feel free to reach out. I'll add all the resources and my contact in the chat. That's it right now.
Thank you, Marcus. This as the elephant in the room is finance. We always keep talking about the best practice, but in the end, I think it's important to also guide countries on how to generate some kind of financial resource. So all these financial instruments, innovative financial instruments, are very, very necessary. Thank you so much for making it also concise and brief. I'm going to go to the second round, but I now have a plea to the panelists to make it short and concise, maybe 1 minute, maximum 90 seconds, so that we can have a bit of discussion, maybe around 5 minutes, because we are running out of time. Sebastian, in what ways can WMO collaborate with the Drought Action Catalyst, strengthen the early warning for all initiative, particularly for drought-prone countries in Africa and South Asia? Try to be as brief as possible, Sebastian, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the second question. So as mentioned by Giriraj earlier, WMO co-leads the Integrated Drought Management Program along with the Global Water Partnership, and already in partnership with organizations like IWMI and others who are in this webinar and involved in the Drought Action Catalyst. And in fact, the Drought Action Catalyst itself is intended to enhance actions according to the 3 pillars of the integrated drought management program and the IDM pillars. Then if you look at the early warnings for all initiative that WMO also co-leads, again, you see that there are similarities in the pillars. So aspects like monitoring, observations are key. It's what WMO leads. And then again, you have risk knowledge, warning on communications, and preparedness and response. So basically, we're looking at the entire chain of how to make people more prepared for and resilient to hazards such as drought, so that when there is early warning, action can be taken as quickly as possible, or better yet, will already have been taken that prevents the occurrence of humanitarian crises. So like Rachel mentioned earlier, building resilience for drought goes beyond just being able to react, but being proactive and even prospective. And what does prospective mean? It means looking for and addressing the root causes of vulnerability to drought. What makes people vulnerable? Why is it that they are vulnerable when a drought occurs? Can you address those issues? Can you find those issues and address them? So WMO has examples of such programs and projects across Africa, Asia, South America that link forecasting and early warning services to local preparedness and adaptation actions like water management that Giriraj mentioned earlier. And these result in a chain of enhanced resilience to hazards by integrating end-to-end support for people and communities. So ultimately, I just want to say that drought action requires multi-stakeholder, intersectoral, and global to local partnership. Partnership is key, and that partnership should integrate drought policies and plans, financing for action, and implementation of effective and sustainable on-the-ground drought management strategies. So in closing, just to say that WMO as an institution and as co-lead of the Integrated Drought Management Program, we look forward to working with IWMI and others on initiatives like the Drought Action Catalyst and contributing to its goals. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sebastian. And WMO is now on board for this action catalyst. And I'm also happy to inform you, Giriraj, that ENCCD is also looking forward to cooperate with you on this. Viola, how can the African Union Commission engage with the Drought Action Catalyst to co-develop these regional frameworks and investment platform so that we can align with the AU climate service strategies? If you can be brief, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I think Sebastian has mentioned most of the things, and the most critical one is that drought resilience requires collaboration and cooperation from different sectors, but also from global to regional to national as well. I would say knowledge sharing and capacity building, that is one of the key areas where the Drought Action Catalyst can come in. Like Giriraj mentioned at the beginning, he mentioned that we could be able to exchange experiences from different regions, so from Asia, for example, to Africa, and learn from each other on how to build drought resilience, or also drought management as well. The other key one will be financing, and I'm happy that Marcus from the World Bank is here as well, because at the end of the day, if you provide the early warning information, and even if you go to the extent of saying who should act, unless they have the finances to do the action, then we might not be able to actually leverage on the benefits of early warning. So DRR financing or drought risk financing is important. From the African Union perspective, we're encouraging member states to prioritize DRR financing into their national budget. But again, that might not be enough sufficient, and therefore we need to work with other institutions to be able to have pre-arranged financing. In terms of financing, there's also catalyzed investment as well. So we need to organize whatever we're doing in a way that catalyzes investment from private sector, for example. Is there a way we can present the drought resilience case in a way that attracts private sector to invest into, for example, water management for long-term drought resilience building? To keep it short, I will end there, Danielle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Viola. I think you hit the points: knowledge sharing, catalyzing investment, financing, and also the involvement of the private sector. I think they are very, very key words, and I'm sure we are taking notes. And now, Rohini, what are the opportunities that you see for collaboration with the Drought Action Catalyst? If you can tell us a few words in 1 minute or maybe 90 seconds at maximum. Thank you. We don't hear you, Viola.
Yeah. In high-risk drought zones like Sri Lanka, innovative financing tools and technical expertise will give leverage to scale up pre-arranged financing and social protection. Collaboration with the Drought Action Catalyst offers valuable opportunities to do so. By aligning WFP's operational experience with the Catalyst resources, WFP can consider to offer the following collaborations. One is anticipatory action. The other one is strengthening government capacity. In anticipatory action, co-develop scalable models that integrate anticipatory funding with social protection systems. Under strengthening government capacity to improve coordination across key stakeholders and promoting inclusive approaches. In addition to ongoing technical support for social protection and anticipatory action, WFP Sri Lanka CEO can play a role in scaling pre-arranged financing and drought resilience by expanding shock responsive social protection, support the expansion of targeting system, building on existing registries to identify drought-affected populations in advance. Also provide technical assistance to strengthen delivery systems. As I mentioned, the mobile payments, beneficiary feedback mechanisms, etc. In addition, with the support of our regional and headquarters also, we could engage in co-developing risk financing instruments, collaborate with the Drought Action Catalyst to design and pilot forecast-based parametric financing mechanisms tailored to Sri Lanka's drought-prone regions. Also, strengthening data and early warning linkages, that is very important. Very important to invest in improving drought early warning system, integrating meteorological, agricultural, and social vulnerability data. This is very helpful for targeting too, and link triggers from early warning system to pre-agreed response actions and financing disbursement, ensuring that timely assistance are provided to the community. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Rohini. I think these are also very well taken, especially on this forecast-based financing and the data issues. So I think this is another important issue that the Drought Action Catalyst will look into. Marcus, how might the World Bank also collaborate with this Drought Action Catalyst? If some ideas maybe, and then we'll open up maybe for another 2-3 minutes. If there are some questions from the chat, please have a look and try to respond directly if they are directly addressed to you. Marcus, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Daniel. I think there are two elephants in the room. One is financing and one is creating synergies across different approaches that are led by organizations with different mandates, right? And one example would be anticipatory action and sovereign risk financing. These are highly complementary, but usually led by organizations with completely different mandates. So I think this is something the World Bank can support. We can support also the synergies between resilience and the disaster risk management agenda, which often is wrongly perceived as contradictory. Our drought risk and resilience assessment's main objective, as I said, is the prioritization of investments. There's a concrete menu of investments, so we're trying to make it as clear and as concrete as we can in order to leverage World Bank funds, trust funds, private capital to ultimately finance resilience infrastructure, financial protection layers, risk reduction programs aligned with the Catalyst priorities. Two last thoughts that I have in this regard is support of regional coordination, basically the entire learning agenda and evidence generation to get ready for what's to come. Drought characteristics are changing, flash floods are increasing. And then the last thing I'd like to say is collaboration doesn't always have to be transactional, working with the bank, right? Sharing knowledge is very often the basis for the development of financial instruments at different levels. So absolutely feel free to reach out, go to the website, reach out to me directly. I'll put that in the chat. Over to you.
You, Marcus, I think you also highlight what Rohing also talked about, this knowledge sharing and synergies. I also want to use the opportunity that there is a community of learning and practice on drought management by the UNCCD. We have distinguished co-chairs who are also part of this session today. So I think knowledge management is very important. Maybe before I give the floor for a closing to Rachel, there is one question. How can we de-risk investments in drought early warning systems in order to attract private sector investments? And what has worked? Maybe, Marcus, that is for you, and then we might close, and then I give the floor to Rachel. So the question is, how can we de-risk investment in drought early warning systems, and how can we attract private sector investment? If you want to just say a few words on that, Marcus.
Yeah, very, very quickly. I mean, in order to de-risk investments, you need to de-risk investments. You need to have a proper comprehensive risk assessment first, right? And once that is done, and the stakeholders are on board to make this very, very quick, because we could talk about this for hours. There are many different options to do this, supported by clarity on the regulatory framework, clarity on what the capacities are when it comes to public-private partnerships, clarity when it comes to different options in the area of blended finance. For instance, to use concessional capital to crown in private investments. So it really starts with the assessment of risks, with understanding the regulatory frameworks of what's possible, and then creating the right combination of tools to make it work.
You cannot agree more. Thank you very much, Marcus. These are very important points. I now give the floor to Rachel, but before I do that, the UNCCD is also launching in a few days the REACT Global Drought Resilience Partnership. That is going to be a global activity on drought issues, and countries are now going to move on with their development of national drought plans, but also implementation. So I think we are going to be advancing on this, and definitely we'll hear more from the UNCCD parties on this. Thank you, everyone. I think this was a very interesting panel discussion, and I really appreciate being involved in the opportunity, Giriraj. I now give the floor to Rachel. I think we have 2 minutes, 2 good minutes. Rachel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. And I'm sure everybody on this call has been enjoying this conversation as much as I have. So let's go back to the title of it, because the title of the seminar is When the Rain Falls. And it was deliberately chosen because that's when we need to start doing the action. If we are going to be proactive, we have to be bringing in all those terrific ideas that our panelists have been telling us about, and the planning that UNCCD does at a global level and all that. That's when we need to start doing it, when the rain is falling. So then what we heard, we've been hearing from Daniel. Thank you for setting the framework for the UNCCD, the UNCCD's leadership, and the COP last year, but the way you're stepping in and reaching out to so many countries, supporting their drought action planning is just wonderful. And we can begin to see those, we are seeing those changes, because we're hearing about how it's much more than early warning systems now. Sebastian, WMO, we so look to you for leadership, and that early warning for all is been such a catalyst. And the fact you're standardizing and bringing in that capacity sharing, setting up a monitor that's going to trigger actions is critical. So thank you for everything you were highlighting on that, and how your leadership and everybody at WMO is continuing to drive that early warnings for all initiative. So thank you very much for that. Viola, I loved the conversations that you were talking about, those 3 principles, and the African Union, and all that you're doing as part of the African Union Commission that is about a compounding risk. Absolutely, droughts never just happen in isolation. It's droughts and in a lot of places it's droughts and floods now as one of our We've heard lots of good drought actions, whether it's about drought resilient crops, or is it about payments? How do we set up social networks? How do we set up investment to be able to do that? And then that co-design, co-development, co-production, both you and Rohini highlighted how we've got some great ideas, but it has to be contextualized. It has to be brought down onto the ground to be able to do that. So Rohini, the World Food Programme, you're such a leader in that. And it was great to hear about you have global strategies, but what you've done in Sri Lanka to be able to bring that together. And Marcus, thank you for keeping us focused on risk and finance and how we can catalyze and bring actions and the finance that's there available to be able to install and develop and make locally contextualize those actions that we need, and being able to then the ones that we can't generate mitigation of those risks for, what we need to be able to have in place to make sure the most vulnerable and everybody is not impacted in that way. So thank you, Girish and the team. It has been fantastic to hear this. It's been a wonderful, in our very busy days, to take an hour to hear these advances is fantastic. And do join the Drought Catalyst. It's very much everybody coming together. We need everybody's skills and capabilities. So please stay in touch. And thank you very much. And I wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.